Well, let me maybe talk about some of these things generally, just to make sure that I address them. So, our assumption has been that building any facility is generally safer and more comfortable than not having a facility. And so, our principle for bikeway design is typically separating people riding bikes from high volumes of fast-moving traffic. And how we do that depends on the nature of the street that we're building on. So if it's a high-volume roadway, then we're going to create a separate space for bikes. And the way that we've typically done that has been with a bike lane. And I'll tell you my own personal experience, and that I know of many others. I'll tell you two personal experiences. The first was my first experience in a bike lane. So I've been a very experienced cyclist for a long time. I had executed a solo across North America bike ride when I was in my 20s. That was in the early 1980s. And had ridden in cities all over the U.S., used bicycle as a primary means of transportation. So very experienced cyclist. Rode everywhere with no problems into the heart of urban cores in Boston and New York City, where I mostly lived. Moved out to Portland, was out taking a ride on my nice speedy road bike, wearing my nice tight Lycra. And this was in 1992, perhaps, when there were very few bike lanes, but I managed to stumble into the first bike lane that I've ever been in. And as soon as I hit the bike lane, I relaxed. Experienced the sensation of relaxation, which was very profound for me, because up until that moment, I didn't realize that I had ever been tense while riding a bicycle. And so it was just this sense that I no longer had to contend with the cars behind me. That the cars could go and do their thing, however they wanted to do it, and I could be here in the bike lane and I could be doing my thing, however I wanted to do it. I could operate at a speed that felt comfortable to me. And I wasn't in the way of anybody. I think that was it. And many years later, once I had a job as the city's bike coordinator, my daily commute was on a very busy street, no bike lane on it. I would ride my speedy road bike, wearing my Lycra, carrying my work clothes in a backpack. We'd go really fast, we'd get all sweaty, and we finally started bike lane on that roadway, and all of a sudden I realized I didn't have to ride my speedy road bike anymore. I purchased the city bike, very upright. I started wearing my work clothing to work, and I could go at a very comfortable, relaxed, no sweat pace because I had that separated space. So our strategy for busy streets has always been provide separation. And we're now in an era where we're looking to improve the quality of that separation. So that separation had always been provided by an 800mm white stripe that created a 1.5 meter space that was separate. Now we're trying to improve that by putting physical barriers where that 800-meter stripe was and making that 1.5 meter space more akin to 2.1 to 2.4 meters. So we're trying to improve the quality of the space. So our assumption has always been that the provision of a bicycle facility is, by its nature, going to be certainly a more comfortable space, and our data indicates it's also a safer space. There's always problems with that. There's always a bit of a trade-off. On less busy streets, we've been developing bicycle boulevards, which are low-volume roadways that already work pretty well for biking, and there's things that we do to make them work better. And typically it's traffic calming. We're speeding the cars, we're slowing the cars down to 30 kilometers per hour. We're diverting cars. We're putting in physical barriers so cars cannot drive continuously on the roadway. We're putting a lot of markings on the street. So we're finding that with high volumes of cyclists operating in a very low volume roadway for cars, fewer than 1,000 cars a day, again, very safe statistically, and the feel of it is also quite safe. And so we find that those streets are among the more popular. Culture, a number of questions about culture. I don't think that you change, you can't just go out and tell people, guess what guys, starting tomorrow we're having a new culture, right? And so I think that there is a culture that has grown up around the behavior of bicycling. And all of a sudden people started riding. And I think it was very much tied to the development of infrastructure. It was the story of Portland is very much build it and they will come, and then tell people about it and they'll ride. So we really integrate both now. We integrate the engineering with the encouragement with the education. It wasn't always that way. The first thing that we focused on for the most time was strictly engineering, and the engineering is still our primary focus. And the idea being that it's difficult to encourage people to go out and do something and to educate people about how to do it if when they get out there they have a bad experience. So we want to make sure that they have a good experience when they go out and ride, and we found that the best way to do that is to engineer something well, build a good facility. So so we do find that the encouragement and the education work really hand in hand. We've also found that the culture has really grown up organically in Portland. And it can be traced really to a handful of individuals who I think have been so inspired and enamored with bicycling that they started putting effort into creating fun events around bicycling. We have 4,000 events a year, 4,000 bicycle-related events a year in the city of Portland. Only a handful of them are run by the city. Well, more than a handful, but nowhere near 4,000. Most of those events are private individuals who are organizing rides, organizing events. There's bike clubs that offer rides. There is a full range of cycling activities that have grown up very organically, and the city is just one participant in that. I think the other way that we are perhaps directly influencing culture is through our educational efforts in the school. So if you can get the kids interested in doing something healthy and fun, the parents really have to follow along. So the parents really follow the kids' lead, and it seems that that's the way that recycling has gone in the States, that when you do educational programs in the schools to get kids to recycle things, the kids then go home and they say, Dad, why are you putting that bottle in the trash? You know, that's not where it goes. Our teacher today said, you know, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, you look like a fool in your kid's eyes, or you feel like a fool, and that's going to make you change. And so we're seeing that the same thing is happening with biking, that kids are getting involved in biking and walking and being safe and learning safe transportation behaviors, and they're carrying that message home to the adults who are also then getting involved. So I think that those have been some things that have been very significant for us in terms of changing safety, or changing the culture. And then as far as safety overall, what we found is that as more people are riding, that conditions in Portland have become a lot safer for biking. That our ridership is going way up. Our crashes, ideally we'd want our crashes to go down, but at the very least our crashes are holding more or less steady. So when you combine that dramatically increased ridership, you know, many more miles being traveled, many more people bicycling, crashes are not going up. So proportionately, you know, our bike crash index is declining. And I'll show some information about that. And anecdotally, that's just what it feels like on the street. It just feels a lot safer. So I think those are some of the big things that we've done. You know, this picture, I really like to start with this picture. It shows a lot about, I think it reflects another way that the culture in Portland is changing. Because what this is a bicycle parking corral, one of about 75 that we currently have on the streets, that removed car parking on the street in front of a business in a commercial district. And this was done at the request of the business owner. So all of our 75 bicycle corrals on the street are at the request of business owners who came to us and said, please remove my on-street car parking and put in bike parking. And so it reflects, one, the fact that there's so many people riding bikes in Portland that they're an inescapable part of the market. Two, that the business owners get it, that they realize that cyclists are valued customers. We're not just this scruffy, tattooed, pierced, like we're wearing lot. You know, three, they've got to cater to those customers. That if somebody gets to their store and they can't find parking, they're going to complain. It doesn't matter if it's a car or a bike. And so, so that is a huge cultural change that, you know, even 10 years ago wouldn't have been possible. Wouldn't have been able to do it. So what I'm going to tell you about is basically how in the city of Portland with really modest political support, a very small budget, but the force of law, we have been able to transform Portland, and we've done it for pennies. we've truly done it for pennies. It's been the cheapest way that we could not only make ourselves healthier, make our kids stronger, clean up our air and water, and we're also providing for the transportation needs of a growing proportion of our city's population. So this is just these are just average scenes in Portland. There are just a lot of people riding bikes in the city. Our facilities, in many ways, can't handle them. This is a bike boulevard. So to give you an idea of what a bike boulevard is, shared roadway. We paint the trees pretty colors so that people can have a really pleasant experience. But it's a shared roadway. There's cars on the street, but it's a low speed, low volume. You are seeing, other ways the culture is changing. The bikes are changing in Portland, right? You don't see quite as many drop handlebars, speedy road bikes. You see very practical bikes in Portland. That's what you see in the shops. And you see these kind of bikes, these long bikes. So this is was created from a conversion kit to create that seat in the back. People are bringing their kids around town by bicycle all manner of ways. And particularly around the schools, you see this every morning. Parents are showing up with their kids on bikes. Kids are riding their own bikes. But you see bikes being adapted to, people are carrying their groceries, people are carrying all their work stuff, people are carrying their children's teddy bears, and people are carrying their children. So you're just seeing bicycling as a very much a part of life. With high bike use, we're seeing a lot of bike parking, really bike parking all over the city. And I'm just going to kind of cruise through this a little bit so that I do honor Daniel's request that we keep it a little bit shorter so that we can also have more discussion. And please, because time is short and we're a small group, if you do have questions right now, just raise your hands and we can just... one of the nicest things that we've got is the ability to quantify our experience. So it's not just visual, we have good numbers. So what we've seen is as our bikeway ridership, as our bikeway miles have increased, our ridership goes up too. And that's why we believe build it and they come is the message. More miles of bikeways, more kilometers of bikeways, more people biking. So in 1992, that was our experience on the number of bikeways in our city, the number of trips across our bridges. Our Smart Trips program is a individualized marketing encouragement program that annually targets 20,000 houses in the city of Portland. We pick a 20,000 household swath, a part of town, and we go out and run a very complex, or not complex, but comprehensive individualized marketing program in that area. And every time we've done this, we have seen private automobile use drop approximately 9%. And people bike, we promote biking, walking, and transit use, as well as just trip chaining. If you are going to take your car and you've got a few things to do them all at once on that one trip. Don't go out, go home, go back out again. So we're seeing car use drop, bike use go up. These numbers are from, we annually count at approximately 140 locations in the city. We use some automated counters on some of our bridges. Actually, three of our 4 bridges that have pathways. And otherwise, we do one-day annual counts at about 140 locations. Many of the same locations year after year after year. And so it doesn't give us mode split, but it does give us an apples-to-apples comparison at the same locations. But we have other data as well. And this is, we haven't yet published the data from 2011, but I can tell you that that little red dot there is where the number is this year. We'll release our 2011 count report pretty soon.